Hello, everybody. Okay, we are on an on-time start. So welcome to this food tech session on building a real-life Star Trek food replicator. Now, when Upstart first approached me to do this presentation, the organizer said that the first thing that they think about when they hear about 3D food printing is the Star Trek replicator. And they're not the only ones. We've heard that many times before in the past. So today we're going to have a general session talking about 3D food printing, where it is today, what you can expect in the next iterations, and how close are we really to being a Star Trek food replicator. So a little bit about me and my company. This presentation will cover the industry in general, but I just wanted to let you know who I am and why I've been invited here today. My name is Lynette. I am a co-founder of Natural Machines, and we create innovative kitchen and personal care solutions. And 3D food printing is one of our first products on the market. We started in November 2012, so we're now 9 years old. So that means we're one of the first players in the 3D food printing industry. And we've been very honored over the years to have been awarded many awards and recognitions, over 40, that include being named as a top 10 food innovation that will change the world and a top emerging health and wellness startup. We're also very honored to have been named by the FoodTech 500, which bills itself as the global Fortune 500 of the food tech world, as being one of the top 5 kitchen robotics and smart appliance companies. So we do have quite a bit of experience in food printing, and we're happy to be here to share thoughts with you today. First, I want to get everybody on the same page to know what 3D printing is in general. Not everybody knows just yet. So here's a really easy way to think about it. Imagine your normal inkjet printer, and let's say we're printing this word hello. Now let's pretend that this word hello gets stuck in your inkjet printer and it keeps printing the word hello over and over again, building it up until you see a three-dimensional word, a three-dimensional hello. That's basically the concept of 3D printing, except with food printing, you're obviously using food as the input. So here's an example of a food print from the start where you see on the left where it's the first 1 or 2 layers. After several layers, you get what the middle photo is. A chef then took this, added some more food elements to it to create a final plated food presentation that was made with the help of a 3D food printer. This is what a 3D food printer looks like, at least ours. We call this Foodini. And you can see that it doesn't really look like a 3D printer at all. It actually looks like a larger microwave or a countertop oven. And that's very much by design because we do think 3D food printers are a kitchen appliance. Now, does the idea of 3D food printing sound crazy to you? Well, it really shouldn't, because if you eat anything from a food manufacturer, so anything packaged in a supermarket, you're practically already eating 3D printed food. We just don't call it that. So a food manufacturer takes food, they push it through machines, they shape it, and they form it. We've taken that exact same concept, created a kitchen appliance, but the big difference is you're controlling the ingredients that go into that food. Once people wrap their heads around this, we get a lot of commentary saying, well, is 3D food printing really food piping, but automating that process? And yes, you can think about that, where piping versus printing is more or less the same. Here you'll see a photo of cookies that we decorated with a 3D food printer. Now, you could do this by hand if you're talented enough with a piping bag. Food piping is much harder than it looks. For those of you that have tried it, it's definitely a talent. So a 3D food printer will automate this task and have consistent results. So this does work. This analogy works when people think about things like decorating cakes or decorating cookies with icing, like in this example. But the reason why we don't like to use a lot of the piping bag analogy is because people tend to think of that only with sweet foods or bakery items. And 3D food printers can do so much more. There's a lot of savory food that can be done as well. One example is these tortilla chips. So I actually 3D printed this, or maybe 2D print it. You know, they're very flat chips. But that's part of the reason why you would want to use a 3D food printer, because you can get that thin consistency really easily with a 3D food printer. Doughs are typically difficult to work with, but a 3D food printer makes it much easier. So people ask, well, why would you want to 3D food print things like this? And the big long-term vision with 3D food printer is that the things you see in a supermarket that are packaged, you'll eventually be able to replicate and produce yourself with your own fresh ingredients. And a 3D food printer enables you to do that quite easily. So this is actually white corn flour, no oil, a bit of salt and some spices, and that's it. I mean, try to find that in a supermarket, it'll be very difficult. But with a 3D food printer, you can actually customize a lot of food to your taste. So why 3D food printing? You know, what's the global impact of it? Is it helping the planet? Is it helping the world? Is it sustainable? The answer to that is yes. Our guiding light, our shining star, if you will, that we follow as a company is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, specifically goal number 12, which is responsible consumption and production. And 3D printers in general help you become more responsible with not only producing items, but consuming them as well. And here's how that looks. So in general, when you're talking about 3D printing, whether it's food, plastic, or metal, when you're comparing it to a factory is a very large facility where 3D printing now comes in countertop versions. So it's a much smaller version than a factory. Factories are centralized. You get inputs that are shipped into the factory, they make the product, and they ship it back out. 3D printing is very localized. You can make the product at the point of consumption or very close to the point of consumption. And a factory makes mass market products. It's really a one size fits all type of product. Whereas 3D printing allows you to really customize and personalize those products to be made on demand when they're needed. So, from a responsible production concept, you're making things when you need it at the moment. For 3D food printing, people tend to think about, I'm sure these capsules look very familiar to you on the left from the coffee model, where you buy a coffee machine and then you buy these pre-filled coffee capsules to use it. That's not the way 3D food printers work, at least not the way we're doing it. We actually ship with empty stainless steel food capsules. And the idea is that you can use your own fresh ingredients and control the ingredients going into your food. Stainless steel is used for these capsules because they're long life. These will last for a very long time. So from a sustainability standpoint, you're actually using those capsules over and over again. This is a real life example of 3D food printing in the market. So on the photo on the left there, it's pretty easy to see that this is a supermarket. What's not so easy to see is the 3D printer, so we outlined it in white there. And this is in a chocolate bar. So similar to how supermarkets might have a bakery to customize happy birthday cakes or decorate cookies like we saw earlier, this particular supermarket customizes chocolates. And the reason why they use a 3D food printer is because it allows them to print their messages on demand when the customer needs it. They no longer have to think ahead about what messages to create in advance, what will sell the best to make sure they're not losing any inventory. They don't have to wait for a specialized person to come in and actually make those messages. Again, food piping is not as easy as it looks, so you do require a talent to make those messages. So pretty much anybody who works in the chocolate bar with a little bit of training can use a 3D food printer to actually make these messages on demand. And 3D food printing cannot take hours, it must be fast. So it is fast where you can have somebody come up and place an order and get that customized chocolate within minutes. 3D food printing is also sustainable in the sense that it helps to lower food waste. Now, food waste is a big problem in the world, and there is not just one solution to solve that. There's many solutions, and the more the better. So you've probably heard about the concept of ugly fruits and vegetables or ugly cuts of meat. Well, with a 3D food printer, you can take those ugly food products and make them into something beautiful that people want to eat. So the photo on the left here is an example of a dish from a chef in Iceland, where after he filleted a fish, there was still meat left on the bones. Not as pretty as the fillet, so but perfectly nutritious, perfectly tasty. he took that and made a printed dish out of it. The dish on the right is from another restaurant here in Europe where they had carrots that didn't look, photogenic or picture perfect, but they were perfectly good carrots and they needed to be used. Their time for freshness is they needed to be used. So they actually created this dish to highlight the carrot taste because they were very tasty carrots and to make it enticing to the eye for people to want to eat it. So 3D food printing helps in the combating food waste. So where are the opportunities for startups? So 3D food printing is an industry. We actually have a number of competitors, which is good because if you don't have competitors, there is no industry. So where are we today with where 3D food printing is really happening in the markets? Well, before we get into that, I will say that customization and personalization of food is already happening in the market. So you'll see things like Coca-Cola freestyle soda machines where you, the consumer, have the ability to go up to that machine, mix and match different soda flavors, and create your own personalized, customized beverage yourself. And then there's things like SodaStream, which will not only allow you to introduce flavors into your beverage, but you can actually customize the level of fizziness in your drink as well. So these things are happening already. And 3D food printing is just bringing that customization to the next level to food. One of the markets for 3D food printing is pretty hot in right now is the alt protein space. So whether that alt protein is from a vegetable or plant-based source, or whether it's cellular agriculture, there's a number of companies that are exploring 3D food printing, not only in the R&D labs, but also starting to execute in restaurants and food service areas where they're using 3D food printers to mimic the textures of real cuts of beef or chicken breast or any cuts of meat that come from an animal. So a 3D food printer helps to create that proper texture. Food service is another area where 3D food printing is being used today. So chefs are always looking at different ways to present food and be creative. So a 3D food printer in their kitchen is another tool for them to use to be creative with food presentations. So this particular photo is a picture of freshly made guacamole. I suppose you could do this by hand if you're super talented, or you could use a food mold. But if you're using a food mold, you traditionally have to freeze the food to demold it. And then what's the point of using fresh guacamole if you have to freeze it and defrost it to eat it? So a 3D food printer enables all these types of food presentations to happen automatically. And food presentation is very important because we do gauge our food by what it looks like before we even start eating it. And it's not just for adults, it's for kids too. So this is one of my favorite photos that I show in the majority of my presentations. It's now several years old. So this is when my kids were younger. I tried to get them to try a spinach quiche for dinner. They claimed they didn't like it, which is fine. Not everybody likes every food. But then I got inspiration from my son's toy dinosaurs that you see in this photo, and I decided to print the same exact recipe in the shape of dinosaurs. Well, needless to say, my dinosaurs became extinct very quickly. Just a simple food presentation difference encouraged my kids to actually eat this and try different and new foods. So it's great for kids trying to new food, having to try new foods, and it works with adults too. Another area where food shaping is important with 3D food printing is healthcare. This is for a very specific use case. This is for people with dysphagia, which is trouble swallowing. With the most severe forms of dysphagia, people need to eat pureed food all the time. I will say with 3D food printers, you don't need to use purees all the time to print. That's a fallacy. We actually have different nozzle sizes that allow you to print with different textures. But in this particular case, printing a puree is mandatory. So rather than eating something like the photo on the left there, which is a pureed bowl of food, we can actually take those food elements, separate them out, and print them. So you'll see the top right photo is chicken, corn, and mushrooms. So you can have those flavors separated out. And visually, it's much more attractive. So rather than eating a bowl of puree all the time, you get to eat food that looks normal. When families are sitting together at a table, everybody feels included. So they're eating dishes that look like totally normal food. And you can see you can get some very realistic prints like that pile of peas over there, which is totally soft if you put a fork through it. And some people with dysphagia want to have fun with their food. So you can, of course, do creative designs like the one on the photo on the bottom right there, which is actually salmon and vegetable printed. And another market where 3D food printing is happening or being used a lot now is the personalized nutrition space. Excuse me. So you may have read or heard about customized vitamins or customized foods that's based on personalized nutrition. That's a pretty new market that's happening right now. We're even doing several projects with companies that are doing personalized nutrition for athletes. So based on their needs on that day, you can actually customize foods. And if you remember back when we were talking about the big factory that's doing a one for many type of product, this is where 3D food printing really shines, where you can actually do customized food for the individual at the moment they need it. So what can we expect in the coming years with 3D food printing? Well, most, actually, pretty much all of the food printers on the market now don't cook, including ours. So we can actually heat the stainless steel food capsules, but that's heating, that's not cooking. You might find a couple of 3D food printers that have a hot plate that they can print on top of, but again, that's more heating, not really cooking. But I can tell you, you will see cooking versions of 3D food printers in the coming years. Specifically, we're working on one and we are actually cooking with lasers. Now, this is very sustainable. Again, it goes back to the sustainable development goals because it's very efficient. The amount of energy needed for laser cooking is 90% less than what you would need for an oven. Taste testing is coming out super positive because it retains the moisture, retains the nutrients, retains the flavor. So you will see laser cooking coming out in the future. And now that Christmas cookie season is upon us, you can envision where you can actually print Christmas cookies that are all your own recipes, homemade cookies. You can print the cookies, cook the cookies, and ice the cookies, all without having to touch them from the device. And the reason why is because, at least with the way our printer works, is you can have room for up to 5 food capsules that automatically exchange as needed. So envision having a capsule of cookie dough that will print and cook. The cookie will cool, and then you can grab the capsules automatically that will do the different colored icing for those cookies. So we do envision a future where 3D food printing will be in the household as well. Today, the 3D food printing space is a B2B play, it's a professional kitchen market, or a B2B2C play, such as in the supermarket example, where we sell to the supermarket and they in turn print products that they sell to consumers. But we do think that 3D food printers will become a common kitchen appliance in the future, especially once you have this cooking element involved in it. And finally, it's not just about 3D food printing. You may recall in the beginning, I said we create innovative kitchen solutions and personal care solutions. This is a newly announced personal care solution that we're doing with our 3D food printer. It's in partnership with BASF. And we are printing customized facial masks. So this is really to work with the sheet mask market. The problem with that market today is sheet masks don't really fit well. It's that one size fits many thing, again, from a factory. It's a homogeneous mixture, so you can have sheet masks that target different issues with your skin, but that mask comes out of a package where the same product is all over your face. And it does lead to excessive spending because then you do have to buy quite a bit of product. However, if you're 3D printing it, you can get a mask that fits perfectly for you. You can have targeted products in each individual area of your face. And then that leads to money savings because you're printing what you need when you need it. So again, this all falls back on the responsible consumption and production guiding star that we have as a company. So we're now branching not only with food tech, but getting into a personal care space as well. So that's our time. We're at 20 minutes. And in conclusion, do we really have Star Trek replicators at the moment with 3D food printers? Well, not really. The Star Trek replicator is where you can go up to the replicator and you can ask for any type of food you want, and it will magically appear within seconds hot, ready to eat, and even on ceramics or dishes that weren't there before. So we're not there yet, but I hope you can see from this presentation that 3D food printing is creating that on-demand, personalized food that the Star Trek Replicator also does. So it's early days. The industry is only 9 years old, 10 years old. So we're getting closer to it every day. And as you see iterations such as cooking, we'll get that much closer. So that's our time. I thank you very much for joining me in this session today. And I can take questions here, or I will also be bouncing into the virtual area where you can ask me questions as well. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today.